Hello everybody, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. So there's a heck of a good chance that one of the lights on this system is going to go out as I am filming, but that's okay because there's a backup light that adds to the ambiance, and if it does make itself known as the primary light source, that'll rock too. So for those unawares, this is the 12-gallon bookshelf aquarium. Could be 11-gallon, I forget. It's made by the good people at Lifeguard. And I said this in the past, Lifeguard is a good brand. I don't know too much about their backstory or their lore, what have you, but I will tell you that they offer a nice lower cost alternative to that rimless, low iron glass, high-end glass boxes that you'll find from, say, UNS, ADA, etc. It's about 20% less money across the board for for similar pieces. Just FYI, and they're not bad. It's quite good actually. Got no complaints. So that being said, let's look at this glorious mess, the organized chaos of what is transpiring, for lack of a better word, above the tank. I've been having just a whole lot of fun experimenting with different plants, and some fail, some hang in there for a while, and some thrive. And you know, that's been a real part of my journey. And journey is kind of a heavy word. It's part of the fun of this hobby for me, is playing around with the cool stuff you can do outside of aquarium, around aquarium. I mean, in the aquarium, that's primary, it's fundamental. I mean, no kidding, right? But I think as soon as you discover all the fun you can have outside that glass box of water, I don't know, it takes an already fabulous hobby, passion, pursuit, and makes it even cooler. I mean, I didn't really discover the possibility of doing this sort of thing. I mean, I was in California and I was watching videos, and of you guys and some of your tanks, and I saw people doing it and I got inspired. I think that's how it happened. Maybe, definitely, there were plants in our house, and I recognized pothos, the ubiquitous house plant. Perhaps my wife had one or more than one, and I just clipped a branch, a stem, and tossed it in the back. And once I saw those roots starting to happen, little white nodes coming out and turning into long, awesome tendrils, I just fell in love all over again with something I already was in love with. I mean, when the roots started growing, feasting on all that, well, for them, good stuff, but potentially for us, not so good stuff, the nitrates, the fish poop, things that might otherwise accumulate in the water column or on the substrate, when the plants started taking that in as their nourishment. I mean, then the true 100% concept of an ecosystem made itself known to me. And I started to think about plants that occur along the rivers and even away from them, and are only submerged during parts of the year, if not a month or two, during a rainy season in whatever tropical climate they come from. And all that thinking and is learning, and you should always be curious. For me, one of the keys to surviving and sometimes even thriving in this crazy, oft times upsetting world is to just stay curious, instead of dreading what will be, what might happen next. Looking forward to it. And nothing, it's easier said than done in real life, the world we're living in now. But in our fish rooms, or hell, in one aquarium, it isn't that complicated. You put that pothos cutting in the back of a tank, and the little white nodes come out and turn into profound root structures that can actually, that big, thick, I'm following it up with the camera, that's just a root that has gone and twisted up and found the substrate and become bigger and bigger. And that, of course, jettisons the growth of what happens up on here, on the top. And while that might seem obvious when you're seeing it with your own eyes in your own aquarium, it's fabulous. It's surprising and delightful. And first of all, backtrack. Obvious is not a synonym for bad. When ecosystems do what they're supposed to do, and you've created an ecosystem, it should be obvious that the plants are going to grow roots, etc., and thrive. But I guess it remains remarkable, no matter how long we're doing this, that we can play God, and forgive me if I'm using the term fast and loose, but we can be overlords for these ecosystems. We certainly have dependence, the fish being the first and foremost, but all of this other good stuff. So that's me rhapsodizing, being poetic about immersed plants. And this is a bit of a jumbled mess. This tank has become a jumbled mess. It was organized in a classic hockey stick aquascape, with the primary portion here, bogwood planted with epiphytes, and some crypts in front and stems in back. And then it dips down to a more barren substrate to the far right, the inverted hockey stick. Well, that's long gone. Nature and the ecosystem took over. Mother Nature became the my ally. If I'm the god of this tank, Mother Nature is the goddess. And if we're being honest, pretty much will take over, for better or for worse, unless we end up serving her and her needs. So what do we've got up here? I've got some English ivy that I just put in. I was walking the dog, and it's fall here. All that stuff's gonna wither and die at the first frost, so I used my thumbnail and literally pricked a foot-long stem. I give that about 40% chance. It's not English ivy. Ivies in general And this does not include philodendron or pothos, which, you know, the devil's ivy. Those do awesome, and I'll talk about them in a second. But English ivy is a common ground cover. It's also the plant you see growing up beautiful old houses like in Georgetown and Washington, or here in Chicago. I mean, it's definitely a terrestrial plant, and not, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, and not accustomed to growing in this fashion. So I give it 40%. Right now it's still doing good. It's been in there a couple weeks. I can't tell if it's rooting, you know, and I'm not gonna pull the plant out unless I see signs of malnourishment or problems. And then I'll just throw it away, to be honest, because I've got others. I got other cuttings. That's pothos. And then I have, like, what is it called? The marbled version. It has a name, a common name that you guys would all know. I think it has mother in it. But be that as it may, the white and yellow and green versus the more classic green or the golden pothos, all of that's represented here. I've got, I believe that is a waffle plant. It's, if it was the purple waffle, it's lost the purple. Now that, if it is a purple waffle plant, say that 3 times fast, those do much better, and I'll give that about 75% chance of taking. And it's been in there a few weeks, give or take. This is what Rotala SP, just a classic Rotala, looks like outside of the water. And funny enough, at least in this tank, I haven't had much luck with it in the water. I mean, you could argue that the whole bottom half of the plant is down here somewhere, but that's kind of just a glorified root system. Now here you see a portion is dead or dying, but in the fabulous way that Mother Nature operates, for some reason it's absolutely fine and healthy over here. So go figure. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I don't want to clip it because I like the look of this hanging over the glass like that. But I could clip it, and chances are the same thing would happen again. You can see a couple stems of it hanging over this piece of driftwood that on day 1 after I finished this inverted hockey stick layout, I just plopped a piece of driftwood on top of the glass here. And here we are now. There's intense, that's thick willow moss or Christmas moss or both. Right there, you can see it's throughout. It's a carpet. It's soft and wonderful and plush feeling. Now I missed all these immersed plants. You know, really anytime I think of it, if I'm in the room, I've got the mister here alongside all these other critical tools. I ought to do a video about critical tools because there are some mostly expected, but a few unexpected that you just can't do without. These, by the way, are mangroves, and I've got them in a simple vase. Now, mangrove does better with a little something at the bottom, not just naked glass. Obviously, it does better in an aquarium or in a, or terrarium, and you could argue it even does better in brackish, but it can be fine this way. And I've got, well, maybe not in this aquarium, I don't think. I've got it growing out of aquariums where the stem is at the bottom, and that part, this top part, comes out, and I might pull these 1 minute, one day, and do that. I could do that in this tank. That's part of what I meant by the fun of just experimenting. That's the pink paradise right there, or wandering dude, the politically correct way of saying wandering Jew. The purple white, pretty plant. That was another stolen stem from a dog walk. And then there's some more English ivy, and it's hanging in there. I mean, what did I give it? 40% chance. So we shall see. And then I just have simple Home Depot or Lowe's $5.98 potted pothos. You know, they have crates of it for $5 for these little 4-inch pots. And I've lined that up with some fun accessories, pieces of driftwood if you want to go au naturel, a bit of vintage aquarium decor, some shells. These are actual deceased snails from my aquariums. A beautiful seed pod there. Just a hodgepodge, I'm not gonna lie. It is a hodgepodge, but it makes me smile. And I mean, these crazy bubblers, that one's really old, it's heavy. You can see all the paint's worn off. God forbid that it's lead-based paint, but people would put these in their aquariums back in the day. You can see I have the thermometer in the chest that he's holding up over his head, but that makes me smile. Sure, it's silly. I'm a grown-ass man. But if, you know, when I nerd out 100%. The beautiful wild pencil fish. For my money, the best looking pencil fish for pencil fish money is what I was trying to say. I mean, those coral reds and purples, those give me 20, 30 bucks a fish. Not just the Dan's fish, but in general. And these are way less, 3 for 15, $4.98, $6 each, something like that. And they're freaking beautiful. They're in the low light part of the tank, which, if I'm being honest, is all of the tank, but they're just beautiful. Nanostomus species, way more attractive than the Bexford, just almost as attractive as the coral reds, and priced like the Bexfords. Got a couple old, that's aged there, why he's got the stoop back. It's already the way those neon rasboras look, but clearly that one's a senior citizen. And talk about the kettle calling the pot black. Those are some pygmy coreodoras schooling as they would do in mid-water, which makes them so much fun. And I've got a ton of chili rasboras. In a tank like this, especially if I didn't have these other fish, there's really no telling how many you could get. I could double the amount, and there's probably about 18, 20 in there right now. I've got a whole bunch of fun Neocaridina. There's some that have reverted to the wild type. There's a yellow golden back. There's a red cherry. I think they're going to town on the remnant particles of bug bites that I fed. All these fish are too small for the bug bite pellets, at least for the way I don't like them. I don't like watching a fish struggle with a pellet, just chipping at it. So I prefer the flake, and I really think Bug Bites is a good product, one of Fluval's better products. And I just scrunch it up. For the smaller fish, I scrunch it up even more. That's it. I've got all kinds of floating plants. I cannot help the duckweed, but there's salvinia in here, maybe a bit of red root floaters. I can never get the red roots in this tank. So then, you know, why bother? The salvinia or frog bit is easier. But I couldn't get red roots to grow. I feed this tank CO2, not a lot. And being real, if the CO2 diffuser is all the way back there, even though it's by the outflow, I mean, realistically, how much of it's gonna make it? across the long footprint of a bookshelf aquarium. Oh, not much. There's probably a mystery snail or two in here, some bucephalandra right here, forgiving my reflection. This tank is impossible to film without contorting and avoiding reflection. I do have some algae, I should clip that leaf there. But the Anubias and the Java fern, it's robust is an understatement. I could pull out entire sellable fabulous clumps and you wouldn't even know it, and I do that. The long footprint of a bookshelf aquarium, it's no wonder they've become so popular. So many fish care more about the horizontal swimming space than the vertical. Plus it looks cool. I mean, I bet you this looks bigger than an 11-gallon tank. It isn't. And I don't know how few gallons when you consider all the hardscape and all the plants and the deep substrate that I tend to favor. Even in a low height tank, I just think when you've got a deep consistent substrate, it gives you opportunities to plant right up front, like a cryptparva, or if I cleaned up all the top, I could immediately put in a hair grass. I mean, none of that's gonna happen. I would take down this whole aquarium before I removed everything that's going on up here. What I do remove is anything that gets rotten, and if the leaves get too droopy or too burned, and you're gonna get burned leaves up by the light, it's just gonna happen. But something like a pothos, it's not, there we go, as advertised, and now you can see the backlight, which is the jerry rig of all jerry rigs. It's like this $8 crappy LED light I got at a swap in kind of a pile where it was like grab one for $5, and I grabbed one for $5, and I just laid it on, I just laid it on the bottom there and kind of pointed it somewhat towards the tank, and that was that. But it does allow me to work in this tank and to view this tank without the primary light on, and sometimes that is helpful. And I could get a good sense of fish that I might not otherwise detect that have been hiding in plain sight in the incredible tangle of these roots back here, which are just as primary and significant in this aquarium as any of the actual aquatic plants. But it is just an endless tangle. And if I were breeding, if this were only one of these species, I'm sure they would, their fry or their eggs, depending on which ones we're talking about, would absolutely be in heaven dealing with that opportunity as a nursery. But then there's that freaking light, worse reflection. But a lot of the spawning, and I have found babies for the pencilfish and and I didn't even mention the clown killies, of which there are groups of them in here. Perhaps you saw some as I was talking. But I think they actually prefer spawning all the way back in that corner there outside of the flow, just in the Java fern. I am so annoyed by my reflection, as I'm sure you are too. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. That makes me so happy. That makes me smile too. Like and subscribe. It makes all YouTube creators smile, and I would be no exception. I just always forget to ask. It was a fun little, I'll end on this fun little pair of vintage kind of fishermen. They sort of bob, like, you know, that, what do they call it, a little bird that you would dip in the glass. There's an old-timey fishing lure. I'll end on that good kind of cheerful, fun junk. As always, folks, keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.